Hello and welcome back to another Rome Total War video. Today I'll be breaking down Egypt, probably the most powerful faction in the game, and I'll be giving you all the statistics, the tactics and strategies, everything you need to know about Egypt to make sure that you dominate the world map the next time you play as them. First things first, let's talk about the starting position. Egypt starts with some of the best cities in the game, especially compared to other factions. The population and profit from turn 1 is absolutely incredible. Across its 6 starting cities, Egypt has a population of 23,100 citizens. Compared to 8,800 for the Brudii, it has a huge population advantage. And not only that, it has the best population growth rates in the entire world, with 9% population growth in Alexandria and 7% in Memphis. All of their cities are between 6 and 9% population growth rate on turn 1 with no upgrades. Because of these incredible advantages, Egypt will always have a bigger population than any other faction in the game. And not only that, it has the best public order in the game as well because it has access to the Great Pyramid and Sphinx of Giza, a wonder of the world that increases the loyalty of Egyptians to the owning faction. Meaning Alexandria starts the game with an incredible 265% public order. You could take all of the units out of the city, and it would still have 145% public order. You can turn this to very high tax rate and it will only be yellow unhappiness with no units in the city. It's incredible. Practically for Egypt, this means that its troops are usable very early because none of its troops need to be left behind guarding the cities. And speaking of starting armies, Egypt has the strongest army in the game on turn 1. It starts with 4 generals, that's nothing special, but 11 Nubian spearmen, phalanx units, 7 units of archers. Remember, the Roman factions, 2 of the factions have 1 unit of archers on turn 1, and 1 of the factions has no archers on turn 1. And Roman factions, at a minimum, will take 15 turns to be able to train any more archers, which is if you're beelining for that on the technological tree. As Egypt, you can train archers on turn 5 if you just purchase an archery range. You can train bowmen here and they have identical stats to Roman archers, but you can get them on turn 5 instead of turn 15. And because of the incredible population growth potential of Egypt, you can get long-range Pharaoh's bowmen, some of the first long-range archers in the entire game, by turn 12. This is literally 50 turns before you will be able to get Archer Auxilia, the long-range version for the Romans. So I suggest if you're playing as Egypt, utilize this technological advantage, train bowmen early in the game, and eventually get Pharaoh's bowmen, and you'll have a huge advantage in field battles against any other faction. The last thing to mention with Egypt's starting position is the economy. On turn 1, if you just click end turn, you'll have a profit of 4,449 denarii, which is incredibly good. Compare that to the Brudii, their profit on turn 1 is 435. So you have 10 times the profit of the Roman faction, and you start with the same amount of 5,000 denarii, which is tied for the highest amount of any faction in the game. In addition, 2 of your starting settlements, Salamis and Thebes, have access to mines on turn 1. One is for copper, one is for gold, but they both give 200 denarii per turn. Mines are some of the best investments in the game because they pay for themselves in 10 turns and everything after that is cheddar. So that profit of 4,449 denarii per turn gets even faster once these mines are completed on turn 3. Next, I want to talk about the incredible tactics that Egypt has access to. I'm going to start with one that is definitely not an exploit and is just a weird thing about the way Rome Total War works. And then I'll get to another, which is definitely a modern exploit. Nobody knew how to do this in 2018, but you can do it if you want to, and it makes Egypt the best faction in the game by far. That first tactic I was talking about is just the power of chariots in Rome Total War when you auto-resolve in battle. So I grabbed all of the chariots and the generals units in the nation. 2 more spawned in the first 2 turns, by the way. So this is just turn 3. I now have 6 generals and 2 chariot units. And we're going to take these directly to the SPQR enormous field army and test it against them. Because by no means should we beat that full stack army, but we definitely will. Alright, let's take this starting army of just chariots, and we're going to fight Marcus Maxentius. We're outnumbered 2-5. He has 5 generals, including their faction heir, and the rest of the army, which is a full stack army, by the way, is really well experienced. They have Triarii, Principes, Astadi, and some Velites. So by no means should we win this battle, but we will because chariots are overpowered. but only when you hit automatically resolve. Let's see. So we beat them, we killed 1,400 of them, and obviously none of our generals are dead, because you never lose generals when you automatically resolve battles. But some of them took some damage, and these units took some damage as well. But the good thing is, these are generals. So if you end the turn, they all come back up to nearly full health. So this is the incredible power of Egyptian armies, because these generals regenerate between battles. If you're willing to just auto-resolve the battle, they can win insane odds. But this other tactic that I'm going to show you is definitely an exploit, and it's a very dirty one, so you don't have to use this if you don't want to, but I'm going to show you how you can destroy the Seleucids in the first 5 turns of the game. So I'm going to take a few chariots, a few generals, and 1 unit of infantry just to hold the siege equipment. Get these on a ship with a diplomat, and we're going to send this ship up to Antioch, the capital of the Seleucids. When you end the first turn, you'll always be talked to by the Seleucids. You accept their proposal and give them a gift of 1,000 denarii. We just want them to trust us and like us. They accept. Wonderful. And 1 more turn, and now we have over 10,000 denarii, which is what we need to make them the following offer. We will offer 10,000 denarii per turn in regular tribute for 19 turns. So a total of 190,000 denarii. That's pretty awesome. In return, all we ask for is the 5 settlements that are not your capital. And of course, we're offering them so much money, they accept. Even though we can just go ahead and cancel this tribute and keep their cities without giving them a single penny. Meanwhile, our massive army can march ashore, siege the city, and next turn, we have a 100% chance of winning this battle every time on any difficulty. You can do this on very hard, it works exactly the same. Perfect, clear victory, and the Seleucids are out of the game, and we have 12 regions on turn 7, I think. So this is just such a crazy way to start the game. We're already making 11,000 denarii per turn in profit. We're actually not at war with anyone since we just knocked out the Seleucids out of the game fully. There's no argument that this is the best faction if you play it like this. It's kind of a cheap exploit. It definitely ruins the pacing of the game. You're not supposed to be able to do this. But you can do it, enjoy it, have fun, try it out once, see if you like it. And yeah, this is just blatantly, completely overpowered. You win if you play like this. Finally, I want to do a quick deep dive into the troops. As I said, one way of playing is just auto-resolving with chariots, in which case it doesn't matter what the troops are. But if you actually want to enjoy the campaign, you should know what your troops are and use them in battle, fight manually, etc. So let's take a look at the early units. First off, we have Nubian spearmen. These are basic phalanx troops, attack of 5, defense of 8, compared to the basic hoplites, the militia hoplites of the Greeks and the Macedonians. Attack of 5, defense of 8. These are identical. Poor morale, they have the same stats. So basically you have Greek militia hoplites. They're not great. I mean, everyone knows militia hoplites are not very good, so you're going to want to get past these as quickly as possible. But in the early game, they're good, especially if you have archers, which Egypt has a lot of. Speaking of archers, missile attack 7, attack of 3, defense of 2, fast moving. This is identical to the Roman archer. So I pulled them up to show you. 3, 2, 1, missile 7, fast moving, they're identical. So you basically have Roman archers as your basic archers, which you start with 7, and you can train them as soon as turn 5, so that's incredible. The next level up, we have Nile spearmen, attack of 7, defense of 13, can form phalanx. These don't have poor morale. These are great. This is a great foundation for your army, especially paired with archers. You'll be able to handle most armies in the game with a good number of Nile spearmen and some bowmen. So definitely very good. The highest level of phalanx for the Egyptians is Pharaoh's Guard, attack of 12, defense of 16, good stamina, good morale, well armored. They're very good. However, they take 2 turns to train, which makes them just not that much better than Nile spearmen. If you want to have an incredible army, it's, like if you were playing as the Romans and you wanted to train those first cohorts that take 2 turns and are very expensive. You can make a really nice army using a bunch of Pharaoh's Guards, but they're not that much better than the Nile spearmen, so you probably won't end up using them. We already talked about the basic bowmen, which you get as soon as turn 5 as the Egyptians. But I wanted to also talk about in detail the Pharaoh's Bowmen, the long-range variety of archers. So these are actually better than the Roman Archer Auxilia. So we have attack of 9, defense of 12, and of that 12, 7 of it is armor, because these are well-armored troops. Let's compare that to Archer Auxilia. They have defense of 6 and armor of 3 and attack of 3. So they have 4 less armor and 6 less attack. Not that that's super important when you're fighting hand-to-hand, because that shouldn't really happen anyways. But it's helpful when you're firing arrows back and forth. A unit of Pharaoh's Bowmen will kill a unit of Archer's Auxilia just based on the fact that it will take less damage from missiles because it has better armor. Also, missile attack of 10 for Pharaoh's Bowmen versus missile attack of 8 for Archer Auxilia. The final advantage Pharaoh's Bowmen have over Archer Auxilia is that they have good morale, whereas Archer Auxilia have neutral morale. So that's helpful. I mean, you don't usually need morale with Bowmen, but that's useful. Again, these are long-range missiles. That's the main draw of them. So they're incredible. They're some of the best long-range missiles in the game, making them one of the best archer units in the game. However, they are expensive to train, and they cost more to upkeep as well, and they take 2 turns to train, which is so annoying. This makes them seriously less useful. But, I mean, you can get long-range missiles in the first 12 turns of the game as Egypt. So yeah, they're a little inconvenient, and in the super late game, an army of Archer Auxilia will be quicker to train, and cheaper to upkeep. But it's going to take you 50 turns of technological advancement. I personally think that this is a huge technological advancement for Egypt. They have better long-range missiles, and they can reach them way earlier in the progression of their campaign. Next up, cavalry. They have Desert Cavalry, which is awesome. They're effective against armor, fast-moving, have attack of 6 and defense of 11. I prefer these to Equites personally. Because they're effective against armor, you can put them up against a general's unit and it will rip through them pretty quickly because they ignore armor. So I love Desert Cavalry, and to that point, I actually ignore the Nubian Cavalry and Nile Cavalry. They have spears and slightly different stats. I just don't think they're as good. They're not fast moving, so they don't have that advantage over the Desert Cavalry. I would recommend you just stick to Desert Cavalry for the whole playthrough. They're unique, they're fun, just use them, they're great. I've already talked about how powerful chariots are when you're auto-resolving, but they're also fantastic, especially the general's chariots, when you're using them in battle, playing manually. So these frighten enemies when they're nearby, and this is a huge morale disadvantage for enemies. They're fast-moving, and they're essentially horse archers. So it makes it very useful, especially in the early game, if you go up against a pretty small army or a mid-sized army. You can just kind of skirt slightly outside of their range. If they're just using slingers or skirmishers, you can fire off 100% of your arrows, and then you'll be able to find a weakened part of the army, run them down, and they will break so quickly with chariots charging into them. I also find with the morale penalties, the high attack, and the high charge bonus, just running a unit of these general's chariots through another general's unit that is a horseback, like a Roman general, for example, I find that you just mow down the enemy general so quickly. I usually can just reliably run my chariots directly into an enemy general and kill them and end the battle because there's a massive general rout once the general is dead. So that's another incredible use of these chariots. They're just so good. Use them, try them out in the field, don't just auto-resolve them because they're so much fun. Finally, the camel-mounted archers are okay. They're not as good as horse archers, but any variety of mounted archers is fantastic. You have 108 archers that are riding around faster than any infantry on the field. They scare horses, so they're kind of good to just keep around because of the morale debuff. They're okay. I don't focus on them. I don't really use them when I play as Egypt, but you can. They're decent. So I've broken down some of the common tactics you're going to want to use, the features of the starting position that make Egypt incredibly powerful, the best way to use chariots, as well as the rest of the army, and I've done a deep dive into the troops. Hopefully this is enough to convince you that Egypt is the best faction in the game. That's not really the point of this video, I just want to give a really good guide on how to use it. Definitely try it out with my recommendations. Egypt is so incredibly powerful on easy or on very hard difficulty. Any difficulty, it's incredibly good. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoy playing as Egypt, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.